This is A Call for an Uprising. Welcome to today's show, exclusively here on acallforanuprising.com. I wanted to cover the Silicon Valley Bank. If you haven't heard, this will affect you if you live in this world. Even if you don't have money in the bank, because it will affect the value of a dollar, it will affect currency, and it will, of course, lead to digital currency, and that is part of this plan. Part of Agenda 2030 is to eliminate cash, okay? The only way they're going to eliminate cash is they're not going to wake up tomorrow and go, you know what, we don't need cash anymore. We're not going to have it relevant. They're going to destroy banks. As crazy as it sounds, people are like, why would they destroy banks? They are the banks. They are the Federal Reserve. Well, because they're going to eliminate the middle class. And to eliminate the middle class, you start destroying banks. Now, what we saw at Silicon Valley is the beginning of what is going to be bank runs. I'm not saying there's going to be a bank run this week. I obviously do not know what the plan is as far as a time period goes, but there will be runs on money at banks, which means if you go to the bank, if you're not familiar with how this works, and try to withdraw money, the banks no longer have money. The banks are no longer carrying money. I covered a video about 2 years ago talking about this because I actually went to the bank to make a withdrawal. And at the bank, they were questioning me as to why I wanted to make the withdrawal. And it wasn't even a huge withdrawal. You know, it might have been over $500 for something I had to do, but it was a minimal amount of money as far as, I wasn't going to the bank asking for $500,000 in cash. They wanted to know where the money was going, why I was taking the money out, which has been something that the banks have started doing because they are prepping people to get prepared for not having their money capable of being withdrawn. Now, with what happened at the Silicon Valley Bank, some people might say, I've never heard of it. Doesn't sound like Bank of America. Doesn't sound like Wells Fargo. Well, we have all banks that are doing things right now that are illegal. What Silicon Valley Bank did, it collapsed this week, which forced the feds to step in and take over. What happens with the FDIC and banks is that there's a $250,000 insurance on that. So that means if you had $1 million in the bank, which some people do. Obviously, people like me and you probably don't, but maybe some of you do, whatever, right? Maybe inherited money, maybe invested money. You no longer have it if you were at this bank. You're only insured up to $250,000. And guess what that means? That means you're not getting $250,000. You might remember the video I covered, I forget which country it was, but a woman had to go in and literally rob the bank to get her own money out. Does anyone remember that? The woman went in with a gun and wanted the money because her sister needed surgery for cancer, like liver cancer or something, and she needed surgery to be done, and she couldn't get her own money out of the bank. Now, this is obviously a huge problem with big banks, but if you're somebody who keeps their money in a mattress, which a lot of us have money outside of the bank, it still won't matter because this will destroy the dollar overall. Because if people don't have money, then all of a sudden people are going to go, well, I don't care if you have $5, you have $100 out of the bank and I have zero. What's the value of the currency now? Well, there is no value of the currency. They restart it. And that's part of the Great Reset. But take a look at this video clip from Silicon Valley Bank, and then I'll talk more detail about what's coming.
People rushing to a Wellesley bank today were in a hurry to pull their money out after regulators seized Silicon Valley Bank and froze its assets. Now, this marks the largest closure of a U.S. bank in 15 years. Silicon Valley Bank merged with Boston Private Trust in 2021 and has 3 branches in Massachusetts. As WBZ's Tammy Mutasa reports, customers right now have no access to their money.
That's right. It has been a frantic day for so many people with savings and investors after the stunning collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. Some people got here in the nick of time to pull their money, while others are still in limbo. The chaos and desperation clearly portrayed in pictures.
When I got to the bank, it was a chaotic scene.
Outside the Wellesley Silicon Valley Bank, a throng of people desperate to get their hard-earned dollars, but the feds had taken over, marking the largest bank failure since the 2008 financial crisis.
They're going to have to wait until Monday morning when the new rules are announced.
Lewis Murray was one of the lucky few who got to the bank and pulled his money before the feds swooped in.
I felt relieved, but I also felt bad for the moms and the dads and the business owners that were still arriving at the bank only to be greeted by a sign that said, closed until further notice.
The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation seized the bank's assets after depositors, mostly tech workers and startups, began withdrawing their money, creating a run on the bank. It followed the California-based bank tanking $1.8 billion.
So this is going to be quite a mess to unwind for the FDIC.
Investors are only insured up to $250,000.
If your deposits are over 250,000, yeah, by all means, take your money out.
Cornelius Hurley is a banking law professor at Boston University. He says Silicon Valley Bank caters heavily to tech companies, which have been hit hard by rising interest rates and pressure on tech companies. The SVB's collapse is now raising concerns about the broader economy.
And they don't know how the contagion effect of this closure is going to play in the marketplace.
The FDIC says insured deposits should be available Monday morning. Those with uninsured deposits over $250,000 should call the agency. In Wellesley, Tammy Mutasa, WBZ News.
So you have people lined up outside of these banks not able to get their money. And again, I said before that about $250,000. Look at it this way, okay? If you have, say you had $250,000 on the button in the bank, and you say, well, I'm covered by the FDIC, so I'll just go to the bank and I'll get my $250. You're not getting your $250. This is going to work exactly like I'm sure everyone out there has seen It's a Wonderful Life. You remember the scene? And I put the clip in, but I can't do it here on the website. I can only used to be able to piece those together on YouTube. But do you remember when George Bailey's going on his honeymoon? And suddenly there's rumors about the banks going broke and all that stuff. And George Bailey literally gives money out of his pocket to keep the bank and loan running. But what does he end up doing? He says, look, how much could you just use? And the people were like, all right, I guess I could use $50 even though I have $500 in the bank. That's how this is going to start operating. This has to do with equity. And remember, when I've talked about equity in the past, do not confuse it with equality. They are not the same things. They want people to think that equity means equality. And people are so dumb that they actually think it's the same word. Right? They equate it to, well, equality. A woman should be able to have the same amount of things as a man, and a black, and all this stuff that they make up and brainwash people into. Equity has to do with all of us having the same amount of everything and sharing everything and having the same amount of money. The elites, the controllers, obviously will have unlimited amounts and will continue to live their lives the way that they want to live it, the way that they're living it now, just even more extreme probably, and even with more quote-unquote carbon pollution. So when you hear this story about SVB, now there's going to be a run on money, which means a lot of people are going to be showing up at banks out of fear, wanting their money taken out. So this is going to hit from different angles and different narratives as far as the destruction of the bank. Don't forget the video I did on China talking about the debt ceiling. I just uploaded it here on the website. I was planning to upload it to YouTube with the debt ceiling in June, the debt ceiling, the debt that America owes to China. Do not think that this does not also go together with President Xi over in China, whatever his name is. I can't even pronounce it, but the president over in China, who is now elected to a third 5-year term because they got rid of terms over there. That's exactly what's going to occur here, where there's unanimous amounts of votes from other politicians to keep these people in power, and they're going to continue to destroy our society. But my point being is that as we see this going on with these fake tensions with America, like I talked about in that video, when the debt ceiling time comes in June and we're not able to pay our debts and we default on our debts and the liberals blame the Republicans for it, et cetera, gives another open door to destroy our economy and to have more conflict with China, which is exactly what this Democrat Party wants, which is really a communist party. It's no longer Democrat. So you have that narrative. Then you also have the other narrative with the bank accounts, which is the Russian narrative. The Russian narrative is the cyber attack narrative, where you're going to go in and your bank account's going to be drained. There have been multiple stories going around, and this is, again, to get people to a digital currency, about women and men showing up at ATMs and doing the tap on the ATM. So remember when I talked about the credit cards a couple years ago and how people's chips were falling out of their cards? And I talked about this is all precursor to get it inside your body, to have your DNA entrapped with your digital ID and digital passport, et cetera, right? Well, now the story is that people are doing the tap to go because the ATMs aren't working properly with the swipe. And the tap to go, people are putting like glue or something on the ATMs, and this is enabling people to come and rob their bank accounts. This is another means that they're trying to get, brainwash people into fear of cash, fear of, going to the ATM to get a digital currency. This is all mind control. Take a look at this.
A 7 on Your Side story about a new type of ATM fraud has exploded on the internet. Scammers using glue and the ATM tap feature have been draining bank accounts.
Yeah, now more victims have come forward saying it happened to them as well. I know I've been telling people about it, Michael. This story's really struck a nerve.
Everywhere I go, people are talking about this. It's amazing. And look, this scam has so many moving parts. It starts with thieves pouring glue into the card reader. That forces consumers to use a tap function, setting up a domino effect.
that guy scammed me last night at the ATM machine.
Pamela Bongiorno showed us how thieves got her money at this ATM.
I inserted my card. It didn't work.
A man in line told her she could tap her card instead, and it worked. She got her cash, walked off, but the next day, a shock.
Why is my account almost $1,000 less?
She found 3 more withdrawals on her account, $940 gone.
I'm like, that happened to me.
Stephanie Berry was amazed to see our story about Pamela and Rob Bell.
I didn't think anything of it. I thought he was just using the ATM.
And Justin Sindelar.
My initial reaction was, wait a second. I definitely did not withdraw that much money.
All used the tap feature at this ATM. All found their accounts drained after they left.
I was so mad. I was like, that happened to me. I knew I should have called 7 on your side when it happened.
Stephanie says she tapped her phone at that ATM to withdraw $20, then hurried off because a man was lurking nearby.
But I didn't know if he was being a creep or what he was doing.
Seconds later, a fraud alert on her phone. Did she just withdraw $600? She replied no, but a little too late. $400 was already gone.
And he said, it'll work. I just got money from there. You have to tap it.
The card reader didn't work when Gary Lee used that ATM. Then a man nearby insisted on helping.
He grabbed my card. Somebody behind me said, it'll work.
The stranger tapped Gary's card for him. Gary got his cash, walked off. The next day, all but $5 was gone.
They put glue in the card reader of the ATM machines.
The bank manager told Pamela that scammers pour glue into the slot so victims have to tap. By tapping, the transaction window stays open even after the cash comes out. So, if a customer walks off without closing the window, a thief can simply step up and make more withdrawals. Chase said customers should wait for this screen. Do you want to do something else? Click no to close out the session.
I think I closed it, but you know what? Maybe I left it open.
Bank managers told victims the scam has been ongoing since last fall. Yet, Chase rejected all of their claims, saying they authorized the transactions.
Why would I make 4 transactions in one day?
The investigator from Chase just made me feel so icky. Oh, how do we know you didn't steal it? Why would I steal my own money?
I just felt real betrayed.
You know, I'm not going to take no for an answer.
Pamela filed her claim 4 times before Chase replaced her money. But after our inquiries, the bank did refund all of the victims in this report, telling us we have credited our customers in full and are taking additional steps to protect patrons. The tap feature does require entering a PIN for each transaction, but thieves have clearly found a way to capture the PINs. Chase said cover the keypad when you enter your PIN, look for signs of any tiny cameras, and don't talk to anyone in line. If anybody's coming up to you at an ATM, they know they're not supposed to do that.
Yeah. So you have those 2 narratives, right? Of course, with the cyber Russian attack, that's 3 narratives. And then you also have the stuff like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, who are implementing the carbon footprint and implementing monitoring what people are buying. Like we saw, stories out there. Some people, have shared here on the website. I saw it myself. The Bank of America was, monitoring January 6th firearm purchases and reporting it to the government. So this all has to do with the destruction of the bank as it is. The problem with conservatives is that conservatives feel like the banks need to be destroyed, and that's understandable because the Federal Reserve is behind all of this stuff with the Rothschilds. However, the trap that's in place is the cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is not protected at all. And if you don't think that all these cryptocurrencies were a trap from the get-go and not just a test run, that they're going to bankrupt people, look no further than we saw with FTX. When I covered FTX, I talked about this then. There is no safe haven outside of it. People are going to be forced into a digital currency. The only safe haven would be a bartering system that civilians do on their own. And I guarantee you there will be civilians, including myself probably, that when crap hits the fan, will live that way off grid. And of course, they'll deem us extreme terrorists. They'll put false flags around us. We know how this whole operation is going to work. The other thing to note is Wells Fargo, at the same time as all this stuff happening, people went, who were supposed to get paid through Wells Fargo, no money was showing up in their account because of a technical issue. So Wells Fargo customers were missing deposits in their accounts. A few weeks ago, we saw the same thing with Bank of America. people were waking up and they had $0.00 in their bank account. So for anyone out there listening, understand this. You are not insured with the $250,000. If you're asking me what my advice is this. Extra money that you have, the old mindset of, well, let me keep extra money so I can retire. I'll invest it so I can make more. I'll save it for my kid to go to college. Buy food and water. Stock up what you can. I'm not telling you to spend every dollar that's in your bank account so you have $0 in there. But I'm telling you, the most valuable resource is going to be food and water. That means if you have to put in a pitch pump, for those of you out there that can afford to put in pitch pumps, a pitch pump would be, if you're not familiar with what it is, it's like, watching Little House on the Prairie, so to speak. You can actually get pitch pumps installed inside your home. So you would have your water system inside your home, your filtration system, and you can have a cutoff valve where you could, when the grid is down or the power is out, you could shift it over and you could use a pitch pump. So in other words, when the power is out, most of us know, everyone should know, that you can't get water if you have well water. If you have city water, it's different. But if you have well water, you would need a pitch pump. And the other thing, of course, would be food. And I'm not talking about just soups. I'm talking about, survival food. I don't promote any of those websites, so I'm sure you could find some of them. I don't come out and try to do that stuff with affiliate marketing and all that crap. But there's plenty of places you can find food. So that's what I would recommend people do. Because there's going to be nothing more valuable. If you don't think that's where we're headed, I don't know what to tell you. And at the very least, this is what I tell people. I say, okay, they're like, oh, that's crazy. Well, at the very least, if I say I spend, I don't know, $1,000, and say that could buy you a year's worth of food, and that food lasts, most of these survival companies last like 20 years. Well, it doesn't mean that I wasted $1,000 if crap doesn't hit the fan in the next 20 years, because I have a year's worth of food, so I'll just eat it. So it's not a bad investment. It's like getting food ahead of time and not having to rely on the government. That's how you have to look at it. So look at it, and it's cheaper than a year's worth of food at the grocery store. That's what's crazy about it. It's cheaper. Now, does it taste as good as buying an Omaha steak? Probably not. But, you're not going to care about the taste when your options are go to the government and eat their Soylent product and take the mark, or go outside and eat Z-Bugs. You're not going to want to do that. So there's going to be a run on the banks, and there's going to be a lot of narrative out there about people, going into crypto, or the crypto being the smarter option to do, and et cetera, et cetera. None of these options are going to work, because then the option is obviously, as we all know, problem, reaction, solution. The option is these stories that we see where they're telling us that the digital currency is ready, right? Like this article, U.S. Treasury says it's getting digital dollar ready. I've covered this for the last year or two. They've been talking about, the Federal Reserve has been talking about it. So this story conveniently comes out, literally right at the same time, a week before this bank goes bankrupt. No big deal, by the way. The government doesn't address the bank not having people's money. You think this would be the top concern of American citizens, but of course, laundering money through Ukraine for child trafficking seems to be the main concern. But you would think our government would say, this is a crime. We'll make sure that every single person who had their money in there gets their money back. No. Our government doesn't even address this stuff. We just have to make sure we talk about if men can cut off their penises or not. And if people don't agree with it, they should be thrown off the internet and not allowed to speak, because that's how insane this is. But conveniently, this story came out a week before the U.S. Treasury efforts to create a U.S. digital currency could be imminent. The Treasury is engaging in the technological development so that we would be able to move forward rapidly if it were determined to be in the national interest. Well, of course it's going to be determined to be in the national interest. Why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it be when banks are suddenly going, whoops, we got no money. The housing market crashes, all these things the bank does with your money, by the way. That's the thing. We live in a really dumb time period. And it's obviously the fault of the schools. It's the fault of the media. It's the fault of the parents. But for any of the teenagers out there who listen, I'm sure most of you are older who listen. I think literally teenagers assume if you put, $15,000 in the bank, that your $15,000 sits in the bank. They don't realize how the banks make money, using your money to invest in other things. And obviously all the bank owners are all corrupt and they know what to do with them. We all understand. They buy up all the land, they build, et cetera, put people in smart cities. It's not sitting in the bank. So when you put your money in the bank, it don't mean you're getting it back. It don't mean when you go there today, there's a little vault that has your name on it. It says John Doe. That's got your exact amount of money sitting in it. There's going to be a run on banks. Banks aren't going to be able to pay anyone, and the government's going to ignore it. Okay, that's my point. The government is going to ignore this. Thus, problem, reaction, solution, the government will sweep in. They'll say, you know what? We've seen robberies at ATMs. We've seen banks like Wells Fargo unable to, having technical issues. We've seen Bank of America having technical issues where there's $0 and 0 cents in people's bank accounts when they wake up. Now we're seeing banks, we're finding out that they're broke. We're finding out that FTX was really broke and had no money because they laundered all of it, right? Even though that guy's not in jail, which is insanity. So we have the solution. We need to reset. We need to start with a digital currency. And this new digital dollar will be safe. That means that you'll always have your money. The banks can't take your money and invest your money into projects, right? And of course, that sounds good on paper, but that's not what this is really about. It's about controlling and monitoring every cent that you spend and being able to shut off your bank account at will if you disagree with Big Brother. That's the point of all of this, okay? This is all stuff that ties into your credit score, et cetera, et cetera. So they come out, now they're telling us the digital dollar or the central bank digital currency could be a reality in the US very, very soon. And this is them speaking. They say digital dollar, CBDC, is a government-backed digital currency. As the Federal Reserve says, it's something that is easily available to the general public, just like cash, right? But we can see where they're pushing cash away and they're pushing in digital currency. And what are they doing to push it in? They're saying, look, with this digital currency, it's fully backed because you have the currency. It's in your digital wallet. The bank can't take your money and go make investments with your money and then lose your money and then go bankrupt like we're seeing at Silicon Valley Bank. So that's how this whole process works. The dollar has to be destroyed. It's the most basic form of the New World Order. If you listen to people from 50 years ago talking about the New World Order, before they were talking about, I guess some people were talking about mass inoculations and depopulation and that stuff. But the bread and butter of the New World Order has always been to destroy the economy, to have a great reset, to have a great depression, to be able to come in with a new controlled currency, and of course to demolish capitalism, which is the whole point, really, right? This is all about communism. All these people in power are all communists. They've infiltrated every party, every position of power, Republican, Democrat. And they have nothing but their best interest in mind and the worst interest for us in mind. But they're convincing people that it's not slavery because they're saying that people of certain skin colors or sexual preferences have been oppressed and they deserve to be able to wake up every day, not work, not do anything and get paid, while people who have a work ethic, etc., are only make money because of their skin color. It's all nonsense. That's why people need to drop the left and right, drop the looking at people's skin color oppression, And it's utter insanity. But 2030 is closer than we think, and people forget about what has to happen with the economy and what has to happen with the currency. And these are the stories that will come out. And the reason for it is to make people paranoid about their money in the bank, set people up, desensitize people, because when it happens, they're going to be desensitized and not going to be in total shock when their money's not in the bank. And what do you think people are going to do? They think you're going to grab guns? Go grab guns and do what? Right? Say your whole town gets wiped out economically. You're all in the local town bank, let's just say, right? You're in John Doe Bank, 1,000 people. All of a sudden, you wake up, every single one of you has $0. All right, well, maybe you'll all get together because you'll all be on an equal playing field as far as you're all broke, you're all up the same creek, known as Poop Creek. What are y'all going to do? Go all the way, say you're in Idaho, you're going to march to D.C.? They have the military waiting for you. They're going to know you're coming because they'll already, have this plan. They'll be underground. This is why they've built all the underground bunkers and all the underground tunnels, to create chaos on the surface level. And these are the types of things that will cause chaos among citizens, because guess who the people are going to blame when there's no money in the bank? One another. They're going to blame Republicans because Republicans didn't lift the debt ceiling. Republicans are going to blame liberals because liberals are communists and want to destroy capitalism. And they'll be at each other's throats. Like the line from, I think the Joker says it, right? These people will eat each other, and they will. That's why it's so important to continue waking people up, because if you can pull them out of this, and this is the reason that I feel like I'm censored, and other people really aren't, is the left-right paradigm. There's two things. There's that, and then exposing Satanism, because that's not stuff you hear like the Ben Shapiros of the world talk about, right? Unless it's Sam Smith at the Grammys and they act all shocked about it when, Satanism is everywhere. All of these satanic things like McMartin have been happening for decades, and nobody talks about it except people like me. But the other thing is the left-right paradigm. It is very important to keep you trapped in it, because then they come in with the solution instead of saying, no, you don't come in with the solution. You're the problem. You're the problem, not the Democrats, not the Republicans, not the people. The government's the problem. You've brainwashed people and you've worked them into a massive psyop against one another. And now it's time to stop it. But it'll be too late before people wake up at this point. And that's why I got to continue to push forward. I'll push it forward here on the website. I don't know yet what I'm doing on YouTube and other options, but please be aware of this. It's really important that people know what they're doing here at the banks. And again, I know people are like, well, you got to give us a solution, or what is your recommendation? My recommendation that I will give you is what I just said a few minutes ago. Having money in gold and silver, what do you think that does? Okay, you don't have $5,000 in cash. Say you went to the bank and you wanted to take $5,000 in cash out, right? So you either have $5,000 in cash at home or you have $5,000 worth of gold. What does it matter? What is the price of food then? $5 trillion if you're somebody who has a box of canned soups? You're going to take $5,000 in cash for your box of soup, hoping the grid goes back on in a week and that you made $5,000? Once people realize that the money's not worth anything anymore, those are the things that are going to matter. So that's why it's important to invest in food and invest in water. And pitch pumps are a way. You can call, a plumb. I don't know what you would call some, whoever does that stuff, right? Your plumbing, your water, and you can talk to them about it and see how much it is. I've read, I've heard, and obviously I'm prepared in my own ways. But to put one in, you put one in your yard. Some people put them in the house. The thing with putting it in your yard is that when crap hits the fan, people are going to see it. And people are going to come and take your water. It might dry out your well. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't share with people. Of course, obviously, when crap hits the fan, I'm going to care and want to help people. I'm not a horrible person. I'm a Christian. But I do get very mad at the fact that people are not preparing and people think we're all conspiracy theorists. And they try to silence us, which makes it even worse. But the thing with the pump is, if you get it outside, people will target it. The same as with the food. You do not want to let people know that you have food. You do not want to have it on a box. I've seen some of these companies, they have the labels right on the side that says like survival food, 1 month. It's like, no, you probably don't want that in your garage in case, crap hits the fan. You want to be able to keep your stuff preserved. People will come and rob you. I mean, I know this all sounds like something of a zombie apocalypse, but that's where we're headed. And if you can't see the writing on the wall, I get it listening to people 20 years ago when they were talking about it coming, but it couldn't be more obvious with the food shortages, the avian flu, the fertilizer stuff, paying the farmers to burn their crops, them openly telling us there's going to be food crisis, water wells drying up, water lakes drying up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Banks now going broke. I mean, it's right here now. So my advice is to stock up on those things. I don't mean to be repetitive, but I hope that advice can help you in some way. Those of you in the forum, there's a ton of you who have posted stuff in the past. I highly recommend starting up threads in the forum about homesteading, other things you could do. Now, some people are like, well, okay, I can get seeds and do this stuff. But a lot of people are aware that they're killing off crops with the chemtrailing from the sky. So there's methods that you can use and things you could do to get around it, type of fertilizer to use, other ways to even make your own well pump, stuff like that from people who have experience doing it. Yes, it is possible. So people in the forum who have that experience, I highly recommend you start talking about it and sharing that stuff. Because again, money's going to mean nothing. Remember, part of the Great Reset is resetting your bank account and everybody having quote unquote equity, which means that we all just have a small allowance, and that allowance is only allowed if you behave. So people like us, we ain't getting an allowance. Even if they're like, hey, everybody gets $50 and you could buy one thing for each dollar. Well, our accounts are going to be frozen in 5 seconds because they're going to know who most of us are. And if you're registered as a Republican or a conservative, you're obviously not going to be given much unless you conform and go along with it. So they're going to be monitoring you. So I want to let everybody out there know. I know you know this story probably already, but I wanted to give my take on it. It's coming fast, so be prepared. I thank you guys for being here on the website. I appreciate you guys greatly. Miss talking to you. I hate even taking a few days off, but I have been uploading some videos that I had prepared for YouTube the last couple of days, so I hope you checked them out. I thank you guys for being here again. God bless all of you and your families.